Nothing worth having will come easy. And this is something I've been telling myself repeatedly over the course of my life when I've been pursuing a goal that is either greater than myself or is going to undertake a large amount of effort. And one of the things I wish I knew sooner when I was younger is truly how much effort, grit, determination it would take to accomplish whatever goal it was. And the purpose of today's video is, one, speaking to my younger self, but also to those of you that have goals and some of the mindset I'm taking when pursuing these goals, how I'm establishing expectations in relation to these goals, and mostly here in a powerlifting context, but this also applies to other areas of life. So hopefully you can get to the end of this video and have a more clear picture, a more nuanced perspective on your own goal setting, what correct and adequate effort looks like based on the goals you have, and a bit of insight in how I coach and how I establish and set goals and expectations with my clients and myself. So the first thing I establish with a new client, whether they are advanced or new or in a busy phase of life or a more laid back phase of life, is what are our goals? Because whatever goal you have, that will then determine what kind of expectations I have of you as a coach and what kind of expectations you should have as a lifter, as a human being. If you want to go to Worlds and you want to win, there is going to be a level of effort that is expected from you that is above every other person in the powerlifting community, right? Like if you want to go to the pinnacle, if you want to go far, this will require a lot of effort. And okay, yes, we get it. That's obvious, right? That's makes sense. But what if you're in the middle? What if you're someone that you want to achieve the best you can, and that may not be Worlds for you because not everyone's genetics are insanely blessed, but what if you want to hit a new PR? What if you want to go further than you did last time? There still is a certain level of effort that should be put in, that is required to be put in if you want to get there. And I've seen this with so many lifters. I've seen this with myself, is that I set a goal, and just by nature of setting it or even just showing up in the gym and doing a program, I think I'm going to hit it. And part of that stems from the fact that I've set many goals in the past and I've hit those goals and I've put effort forth towards those goals. But what is overlooked is that the greater the goal or the longer you do something, you will need more effort to achieve it. And I just want that to be a reminder to you that there needs to be a level of intent beyond just goal setting. There needs to be an expectation of yourself that greater effort will need to be put in to achieve what it is you want. So, like I said, the level of goal you have will dictate the effort required to achieve it. So if I have a client who wants to achieve a lot, I'm going to create greater expectations for them. I want them to follow my plan perfectly. I want the best effort. I want them locked in the best they can, as opposed to a client that this is, a lower hobby for them. It's not the peak thing in their life. Like they've got a family, they've got a busy career, they've got, maybe even other commitments on top of just lifting and those, family job. And they're okay with progress being a little slower. And that's all right. Not everyone needs to give their absolute 100% focus and effort into powerlifting. Sometimes this can be the thing that you do on the side and you try to get the most out of it for what you have, but it's not the same as someone who's almost making this their full-time job. That's okay. There's levels, and then that dictates what expectations you should have of yourself with effort. So I want to say this to be clear, be greedy with the goals. Be ambitious. Shoot, there's the saying, shoot for the moon and land among the stars, right? Like, I love that. It's good to have a goal that maybe even almost seems out of reach. If that leads you to working even harder towards that goal, by all means, set that. I remember, man, one of my early coaches in the sport, Aiden Rader, every time he would set me an end of the block, top set weight, like, okay, we want to work up to 600 pounds. I'd be like, nah, I've got 610. I've got 617. I remember we were having a conversation with meet day attempts and he wanted me to hit, I think, 606. And I'm like, no, I really want 617. And granted, I should just shut up and listen to my coach, but I'm like 16, 17 at the time, and I think I can do more. And a big part of my mindset early on as a lifter was just this ambitious goal setting, and it led to me attacking whatever it was I did, whether it be the effort in the sets I had, whether it be external variables outside of the gym, locking those in to make sure that my performances were as good as they could be. I came at it with this aggressiveness, this intentionality that would be required to hit a goal that almost seemed out of reach, a goal that maybe some would say is too ambitious, right? And that's good. But at the same time as being greedy and being ambitious in this regard is good, you also have to be realistic. Because like I've had people come to me for coaching, and I think one of the craziest messages I had was, I'm competing in, it was like 8 or 9 weeks, and this lifter wanted to put like 50 pounds on every lift. And mind you, the PRs that they already had were all out grinds. This lifter was someone who was already like squatting and deadlifting over 500 pounds, benching over 300 pounds. They're not brand new, right? Like if you came to me and you're new to the gym, new to powerlifting, yeah, maybe we could put 50 pounds on in 2 training blocks, 8 weeks. That's not crazy. I've done that before with some lifters. I've had even more insane progress than that with some lifters. But the more advanced you get, right, with your training age, and as a result, you're not going to make progress as fast. There is diminishing returns. You're not going to hit 50-pound PRs every 8 weeks off into the sunset until you squat a bajillion pounds. That doesn't happen. And this lifter came to me, and I'm like, look, man, I'm willing to work with you, help you, coach you, but we have to be honest with our goals and expectations. And I told him flat out, I can't do that for you. And no one will, because that is insane. You're a natural lifter. You've lifted X amount of time. That's crazy. Needless to say, he didn't join with me. He told me that I didn't believe in him, and that's cool. He did not actually go and hit those weights at his meet. But the point is, you have to be realistic. Like, yes, be ambitious, but don't be retarded. Like, there's a degree of, being, within reach and maybe a little bit beyond that, and then being just completely out of your damn mind. Like, that does you no good. Setting something so far out of reach in a short timeline is ridiculous. Long term, I love long-term ambitious goals because you can recalibrate, you can reassess. But something like that in the short term, stupid. So that's my point about being realistic. Understand that there is believing in yourself, being ambitious, but then there's going too far. And that does not serve you. You're just going to be disappointed when it doesn't happen. So with being realistic, I think it's important in taking into consideration the personality you have. I was someone that by setting ambitious goals, it motivated me. And even if I didn't hit that goal, I was still satisfied because I made great progress along the way. And though I maybe didn't hit the exact number I wanted or go as far as I wanted, I progressed and I was cool with it. But I know some lifters that they do set those ambitious goals, they get after it, but then because they fall short and don't hit that number, they're depressed. They're really upset. They are beat up, and it's an epidemic. Like, you should not be upset when you made amazing progress. I've had this with lifters where they've hit like 40, 50, 60 pound PRs on lift, and then they're frustrated that they didn't have another 10 pounds because they were so fixated on the number. I had this with a lifter that wanted 500 pounds on the squat. He wanted it so bad, and he hit 490. But 6 months to us starting, he was at 400. We literally went from 400 to 490, and he didn't hit this big number of 500, and he was really bummed. Like, it completely took him out of being satisfied with the performance he had, all the progress he made over half a year, and got caught up on that number and let it, take him out of it, be upset. And that's where I think it's not worth being so fixated on the goal that it's going to wreck you. Obviously, if there's things you could be doing better or reflecting on what you did, if there's something you can improve, good. Address that. Reflect on that. Improve on that the next time. But don't let crazy, ambitious goal setting be something that makes you not look at all that you already have, all that you have done. Take a moment to be grateful and have some perspective. So that's where I want you to be realistic. That's where I wish I was realistic in some ways, because some of my goals were retarded and I was disappointed when I didn't get them, but that's why we come back, reassess. Another point I want to touch on that I mentioned earlier is that it's likely going to take longer than you expect. The greater the goal, the more effort. And you may think that you'll get to this destination in this amount of time, and chances are it'll take longer. And maybe this is because I'm washed up. I haven't hit the big PRs in a while. I went from like a 500 squat to a 600 squat over the course of a year and a half. And now getting from 600 to 660 has taken me 5 years, 4.5 years. And yes, things slow down, but I wanted to be in the sevens a couple of years ago, right? And I'm wanting more and more and more. And granted, I have to take into consideration life circumstances. You do too. That's where it's important to be realistic with these goals. I bought a house. I renovated a house. I got married. I moved across the country multiple different times. Went from Florida to Texas to Michigan, back to Texas. I moved in Texas 3 different times. Like I said, where I'm finally at now, this house I bought, I renovated the entire thing. I had a baby. My wife was pregnant. My wife is pregnant now again. I am being a supportive husband. I'm taking time to be with her and help her in the ways that she needs. So training along the last 4 years has not been something that could always be my number one priority, number one focus. And with that, I was realistic and understanding that maybe I'm not going to progress as quickly as I want. And that's where a lot of people hit this roadblock and hit this mental frustration point of, I used to be doing this and I used to be progressing in this way, and now it's slowed down. And you're just not taking into consideration where you're at in life. Maybe you're working twice as much. Maybe you have a family now. Maybe you have so much more on your plate. And that's not to say that you should cope, because I've been in a place where I've had a lot on my plate, but I still could have given more effort. I still could have been more focused in the time I had to train. And that's a skill. That's something you develop over time. That's something that is a learning experience. But it's not fair to yourself to expect the exact same outcomes when the circumstances are different. You've got to be realistic with that. And that's something I've been giving myself grace with my own lifting. I'm finally now in a place with lifting and life that it's stabled out and I can give more effort to training. And I'm really hoping to make a push in the next year to break past the numbers that I've been at. But I'm also being realistic. I am about to have a newborn. I'm going to have a son in 4 weeks. It's not going to be as easy to train. It's not going to be as easy to sleep. And I'm realistic, and I know and expect that I'm going to have difficult sessions. It may not be as smooth as I hope it to be, but that's okay, because the goals I have are tapered and looked at through realistic expectations. Another big point with goal setting is that you want to have big goals, you want to have small goals, you want to have different timelines for goals, and you want to come back to reassess and recalibrate. So starting with the gravity of your goal. In a powerlifting context, you can have lifetime goals, you can have goals in the next few years, you can have goals in the next few months, you can have goals in the next week to block. And I'll give you some insight. A lifetime goal for me is I really want to squat 800. That is a big number. There's not a lot of men that have even hit that in a raw, drug-tested, natural powerlifting context, let alone at a 200-pound body weight. I believe there's only like 20 or less. Maybe even under that. I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's rare air to squat 800 pounds naturally raw. And I have to get to 700 first. But I think with where I'm at 22 and already squatting 660 and only have been seriously powerlifting for 7 years now, I've got time. And I think I've got the potential for it. So that's a big long-term goal for me. Lifetime goal even. I'd be very, very stoked with that. From there, if we just keep it in the context of the squat, my next long-term goal is just to hit 700 first. You got to go one step at a time. So I'm 40 pounds away And I don't know how long that'll take. I'm really hoping within the next year I can get there because, like I said, I'm locking in on the training. I'm getting a bit more focused. But that's the next one. From there, a bit more short term, this could either be at my competition in 4 weeks from now or in the next training cycle. I really want to hit 672. My current PR is 660, 300 kilograms. 305 is the next stepping stone. So that's the next goal. It's an even shorter term goal. And then from there, within just the week, within this month, a short term goal is that every set that I hit is with a level of intentionality. Every set I have, I'm going to train with intent. I'm going to try and make each rep move as efficiently and as fast as possible. These are on my mind when I'm thinking of training at all times. And in the context of my training, these are in the forefront. If they're not in the forefront of their mind, if they're not something you've even established or thought about, it is so easy to get caught up in going through the motions of, yeah, I enjoy training, but if you train long enough without any purpose, it can get stale. There needs to be some level of vision for what you want. Because if there is no vision, what are you doing? What's the point? Like, I enjoy going to the gym, and some people may enjoy just showing up and doing whatever. It's a break for them. It's a mental relaxing thing to do. I'm a lot more goal oriented, and from the 200 plus people I've coached, most of them are. Most people need something to work towards. So in powerlifting, whether that be a lift, whether that be a physique and body composition within a certain weight class, whether that be a record or a placing at a competition, you need to set that. You need to be realistic. And then you need the expectations around that goal to be clear. I know that if I'm going to squat 800 pounds and be in rare air, it's going to take work. I'm going to have to eat shit for many, many more years and put my head down and do everything I can to get there. And that for me is a big enough goal and is a worthwhile enough pursuit that I'm willing to eat shit for a long time to get there. And that's okay. You may not, but that's why it's important that you take time to set these goals, think them through, because you want to be realistic with yourself. You don't want to be that person that's just going through the motions, not knowing what you're doing, and then you quit. I've had that. And that's why, like I said at the start, I begin with every lifter by setting the goals, talking to them about expectations, and then we reassess. Because I want them to have a clear focus. When they work with me as a coach, I want them to get the absolute most out of coaching. And how are they going to get the most out of coaching if they don't even know what they're working towards? I try to help them get to that spot. So set big ones, set medium-term ones, set short-term ones, work your ass off to get there. Or if they're not really that important to you of goals, but you still want to have some, moderately work your ass off. Work your ass off to the degree of effort that you are willing to give at that given moment. Like I said before, it's important to understand there's phases in life, and there's going to be different degrees of effort and intentionality that you're going to be able to give. When I was renovating this house and I had a 6-month-old daughter at the time, my effort was not as high. I did not have the energy. I was working 40, 50 hours a week coaching and then spending another 40 to 50 hours renovating. I was wrecked. And it sucked because it happened to be when I was peaking and I failed a 670 squat. I still was going for heavy weight, but the effort wasn't as high. And I understood that the phase of my life and the season of life wasn't as conducive for powerlifting. So understand that. Taper your goals. Moving on, the final point that is so important when it comes to goal setting, expectations, all of this jazz we've been talking about is reassessing and recalibrating your goals. I think you should set them with very clear and specific timelines of, I want to hit this by this time. I want to do this in this amount of time. And once that time runs out, or it comes to the competition date, the end of the training block, the end of the year, whatever, you then assess, did I hit it? Did I come short? Was I beyond it? And based on the result of where you are, reassess. Do I need to go for this goal again, right? I failed 672 my last training cycle. I reassessed. The new goal is, okay, I still want to hit 672 this training cycle, but we're going to focus on a few other things as well. We're going to adjust some expectations as far as where my effort needs to be with my recovery to allow me to get there. So come back, reassess where you're at, and be honest with yourself in this phase of life, where you're at now with your career, your family, your time allotment to training. Is that goal realistic? Do we need a longer timeline? Or are you being lazy? Are you not doing everything you can? Could you hit that goal in half the time, and even less than that, if your effort were better, if you were more locked in? Do you have the ability to even lock in right now? You've got a lot going on. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Can you go to that next level? And these are things that we need to take time to reflect. Get off the damn phone, get off Instagram, get off YouTube, stop watching this video right now. Go write your goals down, and focus on can you give your all to this? Can you give some of your effort? What does that look like? And if you can do that, if you can be honest with yourself, if you can be realistic, honest with what you can achieve, or honest if you're being a lazy piece of shit and you need to do more, do that. And you're going to go far. You're going to go so much farther. You're going to have more focus and determination in what you are doing because that goal is at the forefront of your mind. You've given yourself a timeline. You've given yourself expectations as far as effort and how intentional you need to be there. And you can either go out and hit it, or you can fail and learn from what you need to do better. And you repeat the process over and over. This goes to powerlifting. This goes to personal life. This goes to business. I set goals all the time. There's a whiteboard right there out of frame that has a bunch of the goals that I want to hit. Get after it. Get after it. So my younger self, those of you watching, I hope you found this helpful. A lot of rambling. I wanted this to be more of an off the cuff, off the dome video about goals. And I hope that you give everything you have. My final message for you is you're going to die. You got one life. The time you have here on earth is finite. And why not make the absolute most of it, right? If you're going to powerlift and maybe it's just a few years, make the absolute most of it. Your health isn't guaranteed forever. You may get sick. You may lose the physical function you have. If you are healthy and able and still breathing, you are blessed. And I just want you to remember that. I want you to go out and attack whatever it is you're doing. I want you to bring a focus. I want you to make the most of it. And I hope that you found everything I covered in this video useful. So I think that covers it. I hope the rest of you have a good day. Love y'all.